Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show with SportsbookReview.com. I am your host, Lee Martin, joined today by my favorite people. We have SBR's UFC expert, David Manyun, and MMA Mania's lead host, Matt Ryan. And it feels good to be back. I feel like I have been gone for ages, but I am well again, and I am back. So today, we are going to break down the entire main card for UFC Vegas 29, the Korean Zombie versus Dan Ige. It's going to be this Saturday, June 19th at the UFC Apex. But like always, before I get into everything real quick, give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Now let's get into all the good juicy stuff. Before I get into UFC Vegas 29, I just want to rewind to this past weekend at UFC 263. And honestly, that was a great event. And I'm so happy for Brandon Moreno for actually getting the title this weekend. And shout out to Israel Adesanya for defending his title. But I want to hear how your guys' night went, how your bets went. Dave, I'll begin with you for your recap of UFC 263.
Hello, everyone. And yeah, what an event it was. I'm just glad this week Lee's back. I don't have to put my hosting voice on. I don't have to keep sketch of the odds. I can just talk to the people as I like to, be myself. And yeah, 263. I mean, it was a great event. Brandon Moreno winning the title was obviously the highlight, but I'm still trying to move that little bit of sick out of my mouth from watching Jamal Hill have his arm dislocated in a fight where I really did overlook Paul Craig in that one. His jiu-jitsu skills, they did show up, and obviously Jamal Hill is still a little green in that area. But what can you say? You know, if his arm wasn't dislocated, I feel like he would have been fine. But in hindsight, it's easy to say things like that. But more importantly, Leon Edwards won. He overcame the fifth round, which we know Diaz is very well known for progressing in these fights towards the championship rounds. But damn, I did not think we would be looking at Leon Edwards out on his feet. He was literally out on his feet. Instead of Diaz, I don't know. This guy could have won this fight if he decided to point at Leon Edwards instead of continuing to hit him. Typical Diaz fashion. I know he's a crowd pleaser, but I think if it had jumped on Edwards would have been out. That would have been it, because he was out on his feet. But Diaz didn't pounce. Edwards gained composure, and you know he won. He won 22 and a half minutes of that fight. Well, 23 minutes of that fight for Diaz to, you know, eventually pick up some steam. But luckily that pulled through. And then obviously the main event, Adesanya pulled off exactly what I expected. I did give him by decision. I did say the fight would go the distance, picked up 2.5 units on that, which made up for a loss that I took on a parlay, but all in all, it was a great event, and I hit 7 of the fights precisely. I picked 7 fights, the exact winner and the winner to win by decision. So it was a pretty decent night.
Beautiful. I love to hear that from you, Dave. But how about you, Matt? How was your UFC 263?
I'm a little itchy thinking about that Jamal Hill injury. It looks like he got his arm caught in a taffy puller. It was not fun. But to Dave's point, yeah, Brandon Moreno, I was wrong on that one, but I'm very glad to see Brandon Moreno, a guy who was cut a few years ago, end up coming back, dominating, having a Fight of the Year candidate in back-to-back fights. Can't wait to see Figueiredo Moreno 3. That has to happen by the end of 2021. But to talk about the Diaz fight really quick, Dave said Diaz took his time and didn't finish off Leon Edwards. Nate Diaz is a businessman. In that moment, he had a fight-or-flight scenario. And in that scenario, he thought, I could prop Leon Edwards up for 3 minutes, have an impressive showing, make it seem really conflicted on the scorecards that I know I'm losing on, and get more money for a rematch after Edwards fights for the title. Or I could knock him out, ruin this kid's credibility, and then not have a great opponent to face for probably another 2 years and sit at home. So it could have been a really decisive idea in the back of his head, because Diaz did say at the end of the night he was unmotivated for UFC 263 because he had the fight moved because of injury. So it could be the Diaz brothers working the long con to make sure Leon Edwards stays atop of that 170-pound division. And then when the title comes to call, hey, that was 3 minutes. If it was 3 minutes and 1 second, he would have been knocked out. So make that money right there. So good carny by Nate Diaz.
Yeah. I mean, you never know what they do with these fights, but this next weekend, it's not going to be like an incredibly exciting card, but it's not a bad card if you really look into it. We got a big boy fight in the co-main event with Aleksei Oleinik versus Sergey Spivak. I'm very excited for that fight. So before I get ahead of myself, let's just begin our main card breakdown. So we'll start with the first fight. We have welterweight Matt Brown versus Dhiego Lima. Via Bet Online, Brown is plus 145 and Lima is minus 170. Matt, I will begin with you today for your breakdown and pick for the first fight.
This is an interesting fight between two guys who are on the brink. Matt Brown's on a 2-fight losing streak, lost in January to Carlos Condit, and then got TKO'd by Miguel Baeza back in May of 2020. He's 3-7 in his last 10. For Dhiego Lima, he's 5-5 in his last 10. That would take up 2/3 of his career losses. His last appearance was at UFC 258, where he got a unanimous decision by Belal Muhammad, who had a tremendous performance on Saturday night. He's 6-7 in the UFC, with his best run a 3-fight winning streak prior to the Muhammad fight against Luke Jamu, Court McGee, and Chad LaPrise, the latter of the three, the only stoppage win in that run. And then you take a look at Matt Brown. His last pair of wins came in 2017. He's 3-7 in his last 10. That is not good. The last two guys he beat in a row were Ben Saunders and Diego Sanchez. And even though that was 2017 and 18, 17 and 19, pardon me, those are guys that at that time period were already on the downside of long and interesting careers. But then the deeper you go, you look into this fight. This is a stay-away fight for me. But when it comes to the intangibles, Brown 14-3 when it comes to knockouts, 6-10 when it comes to submissions, and I think submission game is going to play a huge role here. And also when it goes to the scorecard, Matt Brown is at a huge disadvantage. He is 2-5 in his career when the fights go to the scorecards. Conversely, Lima is 7-3 on the scorecards. If you're looking for something here, I would throw this in a parlay piece. I would go with Lima. I would take the over, and I would take a decision or a submission win.
All right, beautiful. Well, how about you, Dave? Do you have a different pick than Matt?
Look, overall, this card, this is not the greatest card to bet on. I'm going to be completely honest from the get-go. When it comes to sides, I'm not fancying much. It's more of an over-under kind of card for me. And because of the odds on the under in this fight and the durability of Matt Brown, that just has to be the path that I'm taking in this. It's under or nothing. Look, it's becoming more difficult to put stock behind these aging fighters. We saw it with Damian Maia last week, and I think we're going to see it again with the immortal Matt Brown. There's no denying Brown's level of ability. But when your last significant win inside the octagon was Tim Means back in 2015, I'm going to refuse to allow even the lowest level of fighter give me confidence in a guy like Brown, who's now competing into his 40s. Sure, it's, on a rare occasion, we'll get one of our veterans that will find a winning streak during their older age. But the key word there for me is rare. It's rare that fighters into their 40s can pull off winning streaks and sometimes even wins at all. Matt Brown is an Ultimate Fighter OG, but 13 years fighting at the highest level of the sport, it's evidently taking its toll. Although, with that said, Dhiego Lima is certainly one of the easier fights that he's had since, fighting the likes of Ben Saunders. But the problem I'm having, it's not really Brown's ability, it's that durability. The finishing ability of Brown is evident. 16 KOs, 16 subs. He's only been to decision twice. He's got a diverse striking ability and is often known to dish out them nasty elbows, especially when breaking off the clinch. And watching him wrestle Carlos Condit last time out, I mean, that was some proof. There's still some fight in the old dog. Facing a guy in Dhiego Lima, it should give Brown a little bit of confidence. But Lima, it seems like he's been around for a while, but he's only age 31. And I think he's got a huge advantage in this fight just with his age alone. Lima likes to use his range, strike at his own pace, and Brown is kind of the opposite. The pressure of Brown can certainly leave Lima in some serious trouble, where Lima's going to want to be looking for body shots and low kicks that he's been utilising of late. And then back to Brown's durability, and then the striking defense. That's what worries me when it comes to Matt Brown. Matt Brown's a beast. I just can't see past his age in this fight. And I wouldn't even argue a grappling game plan might be the best look for Brown here. But again, when you look at Lima's takedown defense against Bilal Muhammad last time out, it was impressive. And Brown is going to leave himself tired early on if he does take this approach. As I said at the start of the breakdown, I prefer the under. I do think Lima gets the job done, but these odds, I think it's into the 200s now. I wouldn't even argue anybody that's putting a small flyer on Matt Brown, because them odds, they are a bit off. They are a bit off, and this could also be, this could be a little bit of a revenge fight, because Matt Brown knocked out the brother of Dhiego Lima, Douglas Lima, back in 2007. I mean, he's now the current Bellator champion, whatever that means. People like to say that Douglas is the better brother of the two, but I like to argue that, if Dhiego Lima went to Bellator, he could probably pick up a title as well. So that's whatever. But I am going to side with Lima. But in terms of betting, it's got to be the under at plus money. You get plus money for the fight not to go the distance. I think Bookmaker and Better Online are offering plus money on that. So I think that's holding a little bit of value there.
Yeah, I was just trying to look for the props on Bet Online, and I don't see any props for this fight actually, which kind of sucks. But excuse me, my cough is coming. But I'm looking at the over and under right now. The under 2.5 rounds is at plus 100, but Dhiego Lima is minus 170 and Matt Brown is plus 145. If you guys do want to get in on that fight. All right, well, let's move on to the next fight. We have middleweight Wellington Turman versus Bruno Silva. Via Bet Online, Turman is plus 112 and Silva is minus 132. Dave, I'll continue with you for your breakdown and pick for this next fight.
Yeah, we got our guy Bruno Silva, and it's not the smaller, tinier Bruno Silva that's already a current UFC fighter. This guy's making his UFC debut, and he's also coming off a 2-year layoff. Now, this is two variables I don't like playing with. Yeah. But I'll give Silva credit, 4-fight win streak. They were all ended inside the distance, and that is a scary factor to go against for anybody. Takes a southpaw stance, is heavy on the lead leg. He's like a stalker in the cage, which is evident by his record. He enjoys putting the opposition out early. He's not a bad highlight reel fighter at all. My problem with Silva is his inability to set up his strikes. He's quite readable, and he doesn't offer really the most diverse set of strikes. And to add to that, the takedown defense of Silva has also proven to be questionable. Not all Brazilians own the best scrambling skills and BJJ skills, and I've watched Silva put himself in a lot of compromisable positions on the ground. And to add to that win streak, his M1 challenge fights, they're not really as good. They're not really as good as the record suggests. And I'll go as far as saying that he was losing. He was losing those fights in M1 until the eventual stoppages. I think his key skill, the key skill for Silva, is the power, and he has the finishing ability in those fists. But how long is that going to survive in the UFC? I really don't know. Now, Wellington Turman, he should be looking for a grappling game plan, because he doesn't want to end up on the wrong side of Silva's combinations, that's for sure. Turman, he's got an aggressive nature, and he'll want to hone that in. Take control through his wrestling, and, maybe look for a submission on his ground. I know he's got a rear naked choke in the UFC already. Silva has been submitted 4 or 5 times. And as the underdog, this is a dog or pass situation for me. I think Wellington Turman's a great play here. Brazilian versus Brazilian, and the grappling guy is Turman. And, I always like to pick the guys that are better at wrestling. I think Turman can put Silva on his back, and I've seen Silva on his back, and he doesn't like it. And whilst he's on his back, he also gives up his back. And then if that happens with a guy like Turman, he's going to grab your neck and he's going to choke you. So for the second fight in, I'm going to have to side with Wellington Turman here, especially at these odds. But again, I'm going to go back to what I said before. These fights are risky. So if you can get some decent odds on this fight not to go the distance, or maybe the under 2.5, I wouldn't argue that at all. But picking a side and betting a side, it is just risky for me. But it's got to be the underdog, because I haven't seen what Silva can do at this level, and is coming off such a long layoff.
You mentioned the under, so the under 2.5 at BetOnline is -130 right now if you guys do want to get in on it. And again, check out the props at BetOnline. But how about you, Matt? What is your breakdown and pick for Turman versus Silva?
This one is also another really hard fight, but it goes back to what Dave said. Wellington Turman got knocked out by Andrew Sanchez in his last fight. He's 1-2 in his last 3. His last win was in November of 2019, a decision over Marcus Perez. And also, this is in the baby cage, so smaller cage creates more opportunities for submission, and that is what Dave said. That's his strong suit. He's pulled 7 submissions in his career, has never been submitted inside the octagon or anywhere in his 20 pro fights. But then you talk about Silva's knockout power. But then you talk about the fact that the only way Silva has lost, as Dave said, he's been submitted 5 times of his 6 losses. The only other loss he had was a disqualification for an illegal up kick. So once this fight goes on the ground, he's like a child lost at the mall. He's looking for his mommy and maybe a Cinnabon. So it may not be a fun time if this fight goes to the ground. But that smaller cage basically creates a 50-50 shot for either of these guys. If Silva can get on Turman early, working in a smaller cage, then he has the advantage. But Turman has the UFC experience and the baby cage experience. But the last time he was in the baby cage, he got not rock'em sock'em roboted on national television in front of God and everybody. So for me, I'm taking the under. I think the fight's going to go to a finish. I think that someone's going to pull off the win. And right now I'm edging towards Silva because the level of knockouts that he's had, 4 straight KO and TKO wins outside of the UFC, it makes it really hard for me with someone in that level of cage going up against someone who's proven to have a chin. It's a coin flip, but I'd take the under. I'd take a finish, and I would probably take Bruno Silva right now.
All right, beautiful. Well, if you guys want to get on this fight via BetOnline, Silva is -132 and Turman is +112. And since you guys mentioned the under 2.5, again, via BetOnline, it's -130 right now. But let's move on to the next fight. We have bantamweight Marlon Vera versus Davey Grant. Via BetOnline, Vera is -197 and Grant is +172. Matt, I will continue with you for your breakdown and pick for this next fight.
Davey Grant, 3 straight wins, knocked out Jonathan Martinez and Martin Day, got a decision over Popov. And I'm kind of sad he didn't pop on Popov. That makes me just very sad in terms of puns. He's a BJJ purple belt. He's going up against Marlon Vera, who is an OG inside the octagon. He's 2-2 in his last 4, though. Last time we saw him, he's against a post-peak Jose Aldo and lost by decision. But he did knock Sean O'Malley's ass out. So it makes Vera a bit of an outlier here. He's also tied with TJ Dillashaw with the most stoppages in bantamweight division history with 8. He's knocked out 6, submitted 7. And Davey Grant has tapped out 4 times in his career. That has amounted for all 4 of his pro losses. And prior to the 3-fight win streak, he lost 2 straight fights by submission. And this is a level up in competition as opposed to Popov, Martinez, and Day. I feel like this is a make-or-break fight for Marlon Vera. I'm going with him, and I think he's going to pull by submission. No offense to Davey Grant. Grant's got a real shot in this fight. I think, you know what, I would consider Vera somewhat of the underdog when you take a look at the resumes. Grant won 8 straight fights, 9 of his first 10, 7 of which were by submission. So this fight's going to go to the ground, but really hard for me to go against the veteran here in Marlon Vera.
Yeah, I was looking at this fight. I'm not betting this fight at all, but I do like Marlon Vera in this fight. But I want to hear what Dave has to say for this fight. What is your breakdown and pick for this fight?
Well, look, Davey Grant is British, but to everybody's surprise, and I think everybody will be saying that's a regular viewer, finally a British fighter that Dave isn't heavily favouring or biased towards. We know what Marlon Vera is all about: pressure, combinations, punches, kicks, and brutal beatings. He does own a very decent ground game. He's got great hooks from the ground, always utilizing the triangle if you give up your back. And in reverse, Vera does become relaxed in the guard. Some old school jiu-jitsu fights probably, you know, how Vera forget that you can't win a fight off your back unless you're a savage like Kevin Holland. I think Grant needs to put it on Vera for sure. O'Malley was having a lot of success in making Vera think shots were coming. So I think feints are key in this fight. Strikes up the middle, maybe put Vera up against a cage to land some output. But this is Grant Vera 2. It'll be the second time that these two met. Going back to 2016 isn't much help. Vera has he has evolved so much since that first fight that watching that fight and making comparisons to this one, it is completely pointless. Davey's recent successes came through that power left hand, which isn't as dangerous when he's moving backwards. And this goes hand in hand with the pressure style that Vera puts on fighters. These back-to-back finishes with the left hook and the overhand left that Davey Grant's coming off, they shouldn't affect Vera because that chin is so solid. Now, the problem here, minus 200 on Vera, it's like, come on. I don't have minus 200 confidence in Marlon Vera. Although I have just bigged him up and I feel like he should be the winner of this fight. I do feel like chopping up the legs could really deal Grant some problems later in the fight, but not enough to be throwing money at minus 200. If Grant doesn't handle the pressure of Vera, he's going to have some average counter striking. The first fight we saw Grant dictate the pace, but Vera's striking offense has dramatically increased within them 5 years. And to be honest, it's more of a over situation for me. I don't think we're going to see a finish in this one. At BetOnline, you can get the fight to start round 3 at minus 155. And I think that's great value. When the first 10 minutes are out, as soon as that third round starts, you cash. Mm-hmm. If either man does find the finish, I don't think it's going to be early at all. They're both slow starters. They like reading the fight as it plays out, and their output isn't too high either. Although I will give Vera the output advantage. As a whole, it's more of a reading situation that they both like to do during fights. So, again, picking a side, they're making it rough for me because of the minus 200 on Vera. I am fading a British fighter for the first time this year. Congratulations, Dave. And I think the fight starts round 3, minus 155 at BetOnline is something that I'd be interested in betting if this is a fight that you want to bet on.
Yeah, that's actually really good. I'm looking at the props right now, and there's a lot of value on Vera. You know, so everyone go to BetOnline, check out the MMA props, do your research, do your shopping. It's all there for you. But Matt, I would love to hear. Oh wait, no, you just broke this down. But yes, if you guys, it's the cough medicine.
You replaced me with another bearded guy a few weeks ago. I seamlessly come back in. I may have assumed his identity. No one really knows. But no, yeah, I've made my pick already.
You made your pick. I know. I'm literally like
from the wallpaper. I get it.
Well, if you guys do want to get in on this fight via BetOnline, Marlon Vera is minus 197 and Davey Grant is plus 172. And again, do your shopping. The value is all out there. But let's move on to the next fight. We have featherweight Julian Erosa versus Choi Seung-Woo via BetOnline. Seung-Woo is minus 142 and Julian Erosa is plus 122. So, Dave, I will go to you for this fight for your breakdown and pick, please.
This is a great fight. I love this fight. Two very large heavyweights that are coming in. They're both coming in over 6 foot, that's just rare. We don't see that much. And Erosa is certainly sharpening off his skill set from a 3-fight losing streak into a 3-fight winning streak, taking W's over Sean Woodson and Nate Landwehr. That's some good looks for him. Not only that, a dash choke and a flying knee. They're not the worst ways to end your fights against some seriously tough dudes. Now, Choi, received a tough start to his UFC career. You know, the undefeated Movsar Evloev, who we saw last week dominating Hakeem Dawodu, and then Gavin Tucker, his second fight out. That is a rough start to your UFC career. Now, the level of competition has dropped for Choi, and he's riding a 2-fight winning streak. Notably, he does like to fight at range. The experience advantage is heavily going to favor Erosa. And when we're looking at his grappling tendencies, Choi is going to lose any battles in this area, in my opinion. Choi likes to pressure. When you remove his forward pressure, he becomes half the fighter he is that when he's allowed to pressure. Erosa, for me, has a larger skill set. And when it comes to fight intelligence, I fancy Juicy J all day long. Now, the worry for Erosa is striking defense, and he has no regard for incoming strikes whatsoever. And in a similar fashion to Choi, Erosa doesn't fare well when he's put on his back foot. He likes to be the pressuring fighter. So I can see this being two guys who love to pressure. They're going to meet in the center of that octagon. No one's going to want to back off. And there's a great chance that we could see a knockout. Both men are going to let it go. This could be a fight of the night quite easily. When it comes to the volume striking, I've got to favor Erosa. And this is, again, another fight where I prefer the under more than the side. I have a feeling, you know, like I say, both men are going to come out, they're going to stand and bang. They're going to give us a fight of the night performance. Choi's chin is solid. So if the forward pressure of both men meets in the center, I do slightly favor Choi having more success with his power strikes. But if it ends in a decision, it's going to be Erosa winning through volume. I have no doubt in that. And this should be the game plan for Erosa. He should grapple because I think he can get the job done and tap Choi in a similar way that Gavin Tucker did. So, picking the sides. It's tough. It's just the same, all these main card. And even on the preliminary, it's pretty much the same. I have no solid picks, really, from this entire card. And again, this is another fight that's similar, but I do think the under has a high chance of landing. In fact, this card overall, I think we could be seeing one of them cards where everybody's snoozing and everybody's thinking this is going to be a boring one. And we end up with 8 or 9 finishes on the card. I see a lot of unders, and this is another fight where I think even under 1.5 rounds, because these two men, they do not back up. They both hate fighting off the back foot, and they're both talented strikers. So again, it's the under for me. Slightly lean Choi just because of his power, and when they do meet in the center, I think that his chin can survive that test of time when they're both going at it. But that's such a slight lean. I love Erosa. I think he's a great all-round fighter. So yeah, it's the under for me rather than leaning towards the side.
Yeah, and BetOnline has under 2.5 right now at plus value. It's plus 105 right now, so there's value on that if you guys want to get in on it. Yeah, but straight up, Choi is minus 142 and Erosa is plus 220. Oh my God, 122. I am dyslexic. Anyway, Matt, I know you love the heavyweight fight, so I'm just going to fast forward to the co-main event. We have heavyweights, Aleksei Oleinik versus Sergey Spivak, and honestly, I'm really looking forward to this fight. This might be my favorite fight on the card, honestly. But via BetOnline, Spivak is minus 225 and Oleinik is plus 190, and I would love to hear what you have to say, Matt, for your breakdown and pick for the co-main.
So you give me the big boy fights, and you give me the best name in the UFC, Sergey Spivak. Just in terms of names, Sergey Spivak. The dude sounds like he should have played for the Habs in the 60s and 70s. I feel like in a past life he was a Richard brother. But he's on a 2-fight winning streak. His only career losses are to Marcin Tybura and Walt Harris, the latter of which pinataed young Spivak. He won his first 9 fights by TKO or submission. He has knocked out 5 and submitted 6. He's only gone to the scorecards twice in his career, the last one being against Tybura. And he's 1-1 when it goes to the decision. Conversely, going up against a guy who has been fighting since 1996. I believe he has been fighting as long, if not longer, than Sergey Spivak has been an idea, let alone a human person walking around with a wallet and keys and such. But Oleinik 8-6 in the UFC. He is an OG of the Russian MMA scene. He's lost his last 2 fights by TKO to Chris Daukaus back in February of this year and in August of 2020 against Derek by God Lewis. His last win was a split decision against Verdun. So he's on the Legends Tour. This is another gatekeeper fight for a heavyweight division that is continually trying to filter quality over what I like to see, human tomato cans that are 265 and look like they will either drive a truck or drive a truck through your mother. It's up in the air on which one they actually do, but that's the kind of fighting I like. Tank Abbott 2024. Not for president, but to fight in 2024. This is also his 5th fight in the last 18 months for Oleinik. That's insane for anyone half his age, let alone a guy who's been fighting since I was 7 years old. I'm going with Spivak here. I feel like he's going to go the distance. Oleinik's going to try to keep his distance. It's a smaller cage. He's been knocked out 9 times in his career. He's 5-4 when it goes to decision, so he may not be trying to throw leather here. He's going to try to take Spivak to the ground, but Spivak has never been tapped, and he's won half of his fights by submission. So the real game here for Oleinik is to keep this fight standing, keep a distance, keep a rhythm, and just try to out-muscle and outwork the younger fighter. And I don't know if that's going to work as a game plan. So I got Spivak here, and I'm going with decision.
Okay. Well, I want to hear what Dave has to say. What's your breakdown and pick for the co-main?
Aleksei. Another aging fighter who seems to be letting people down in his recent fights. Look, he's a Russian legend in the mixed martial arts scene. And, one of the most dangerous submission finishers that the heavyweight division's ever seen. But his striking offense has a lot to be desired. And aged, is he 43 or 44? He is.
I think 43.
Yeah, watching his fights, is undoubtedly slowing down. It's undeniable how slow he's becoming. He's flat-footed, winging shots. And the only dangerous part of his game is the submissions. When somebody has them real dangerous submissions, much like we see with Damian Maia last week, when your takedown ability is fading, how are you getting this fight to the floor? If he does get the fight to the floor, there's a great chance that he ends it. But a 26-year-old in Sergey Spivak, this guy, he continues to evolve fight to fight, in my opinion. He began the UFC and he got completely bum rushed by Walt Harris. And that was the only time that somebody was able to put Spivak out. His durability and defense for a heavyweight fighter is something that we should know. And for me, we've got our cliche striker versus... we say striker versus grappler, but this is only based off us knowing that Spivak is probably going to come out and want to utilize a striking offense. But Spivak's been locking up submissions himself. So I think he's going to have the jiu-jitsu defense there if it does hit the ground. For me, this is one of the most simple fights to break down. Spivak needs to keep it standing. Use his size as an advantage, pop the jab, deliver combinations, crack that league leg of Ali because he's super heavy on it moving forward. It's like his entire weight is on that lead leg, waiting to be kicked away. It's not something that the older fighters are used to. The game kicking, especially the low kicks, they're a part of MMA's evolution. This is not something that we used to see back in the day. And at his old age, 75 professional fights, that's rough. And look, he's been knocked out 9 times, and 4 of those knockouts have happened during the previous 2 years. All the warning signs are here for us. And he's fighting a young, strapping heavyweight in Spivak, who can easily finish this in the first round. Chris Daukaus gave us the perfect blueprint. Don't let Oleinik get an inch of room, and don't clinch with him. No matter how confident you feel, just don't clinch with him. Don't let him get a limb. Don't let him get a neck. Don't let him get an arm. Keep your distance. And look, I'm looking at Spivak 6'2". There's no chance that Spivak is 6'2". These readings are wrong. I would put him. He's got to be 6'4", 6'5". He's gonna be taller than Oleinik. He's gonna have the reach on Oleinik at least. And I think he's just going to be able to pop the jab and do exactly what Dhiegos done and wait for that opportune moment where he's just going to be able to flurry and finish Oleinik. Oleinik will probably get aggravated, try and rush in. And that's another thing. The takedown of Oleinik has not even been great through his younger years. He doesn't have the greatest takedown offense. So for him, just getting the fight to the floor is tough alone. And I think Sergey has enough to get the job done inside the distance. I'm looking at Bet Online right now. Fight will not start round 3, minus 210. That's something I'm willing to pay up for, because I do not think this fight enters the 3rd round. And also, look, this does cover it just in case this sneaky Russian pulls off another one of them insane submissions, that Ezekiel choke that is most known for. You can cover your back. I just don't think this fight is going the distance. I think this is another contest that we're going to see end. And I'd also support the under 1.5 as well, because I really do feel like we're going to see a repeat of the last fight. That's where my heart's lying. Same way Chris Daukaus came out and put it on Aleksei. I think Sergey Spivak can do the exact same thing.
I feel like I was trying to, this whole time when I was breaking down this fight, I was kind of giving Aleksei Oleinik some hope, I guess, because he's been on this trend where he'll lose 2 fights and then he'll win and then lose 2 fights and then win. So that's why I'm like, he must be due for a win at this point, and it'll be his 60th professional win. That would be a cool way for him to go. But yeah. I don't know. I personally, I was so drawn with this fight, and I still am. But again, I like the odds on Oleinik. If the fight is standing, it is Spivak's fight. But if he gets it to the ground, then there's a huge chance that Oleinik can win. So that's where I'm at with this fight. But if you guys want to get in on it via BetOnline, Spivak is minus 225 and Oleinik is plus 190. The under 1.5 is minus 165 via BetOnline. And again, check out all the MMA props because the value is there for you. Now, let's move on to the main event. We have featherweight, the Korean Zombie, Sung Jun versus Dan Ige. And honestly, this will be a wonderful fight. Across the board right now, they're both minus 110. So, Matt, I will begin with you now for your breakdown and pick for the main event.
You know who wins because of this fight, Lee and Dave? You know who the real winners are? The fans. That's right, all of us. Because we get to watch a guy who just got a 22-second knockout in his last fight back in March. He's got 2 performance of the night bonuses already, going up against a guy who, if you take a look at his Wikipedia page, fight of the night, submission of the night, knockout of the night, submission of the night, fight of the night, performance of the night. It's the Korean by God Zombie. And yeah, he might have lost to Brian Ortega, but he took out Renato Moicano and Frankie Edgar in the 2 fights previous to that. And this is the first time we've been able to see the Korean Zombie fight twice within the same 12-month span since 2019. He took most of 2020 off because, well, the Backstreet Boys reunion tour. But seeing the Korean Zombie back inside the baby cage in the main event against a guy who's a headhunter, I don't want to fade Korean Zombie. I don't. And I'm not necessarily sure if I trust Dan Ige as a top guy yet. I don't think I can do it. I don't know. I can't do it. I can't do it just yet. I have to go with the Korean Zombie because I feel like the Zombie's gonna pull out something ridiculous. You're just gonna see violence. It's gonna be not Fry Takayama, but Fry Takayama light. I've been watching a lot of the 80s middleweight boxing lately because of this documentary on Showtime. So really rewatched Hagler and Hearns. You can actually watch me watch it on my YouTube channel, worldwideleadersports.com. And for this, I have to go with the Korean Zombie here because I can never fade a guy who is named the Korean freaking Zombie.
I'm over here thinking because Dan Ige, I'm thinking about his output and volume. That's why I'm siding with Dan Ige on this one, but now I need to listen to what Dave has to say for the main event. Please share your breakdown and pick.
I mean, this is an extremely good fight, and I think Matt hit the nail on the head. We can't invest too much into Dan Ige as of yet because he hasn't fought anyone like the Zombie, and this is so tough, man. The Korean Zombie, and you know what annoys me is that we haven't seen the Zombie as much as we could have. That Korean military service, which is mandatory, robbed us of what could have been a great career and potential title holder in the Zombie, and he still can. I'm not cutting him out. He's only 34. It's not the oldest of ages, but he is getting up there, and that featherweight division is deep, and being outstruck by Brian Ortega is what's bothering me, because then we see Ortega getting striking lessons from Max Holloway during a fight. So there's all these conflicting interests with me in this one. And the thing is that the Korean Zombie he's often overlooked during his fights. But you're never going to see a lackluster performance from him ever. Even these layoffs and the activity through the military service, he has always come back and he has always performed. Dan Ige taking a steady rise through them UFC rankings. He's only been fighting for the UFC since 2008. He's already racked up a 7-2 record. And in the previous 3 years of Ige fighting, he's already matched the fight experience that Jung has gained in a decade. So that's how you can tell how much we've been robbed of the Korean Zombie. That's insane. Ige is an excellent all-round fighter, and his fight intelligence, I think, is one of his best tools at his disposal. And, taking decision victories over dangerous and physical opponents is all the evidence you need. Jung has only won one fight by decision in 14 years of competing. So I think if this does go the distance, Ige should be confident in his output and his speed that it is going to take the decision. Now, Jung is such a headhunter, is such a killer, is also a limb snapper, the type of fighter, he's going to make his opponents tap or get knocked out if he is going to win. And this falls back similar to the Erosa and Choi fight that I mentioned. These guys are pressure fighters and they like to pressure their opponents. When you remove that, they are not as good. And I think, damn, this is tough. The size advantage here, the size advantage for Jung.
But don't forget Ige's chin. He has a tough chin.
I know, but so does the Zombie. And I know we're
But Ige has not been knocked out, but the Korean Zombie has.
Zombie has. But exactly. When you watch Zombie's fights, Zombie should have lost every fight he had by knockout. That's why his chin is so impressive to me. And I wish there was a crowd. If there was a crowd, I would probably put a couple units on the Korean Zombie to win, because he thrives off that crowd. But in this one, I'm seeing the forward pressure of Ige falling victim to the Korean Zombie. I got a funny feeling Matt helped me make this decision. The Zombie relies on his opponent stepping into his range, and Ige does like to pressure his opponents, and Jung is the much better counter striker. And for me, the smaller fighter in Ige is just gonna play right into the Zombie's game. And once you step into that range, you're gonna be in some serious trouble. And the people that have defeated the Korean Zombie have been able to strike at him from the outside, and that's not something that Dan Ige is going to be able to do. So I think maybe if Dan Ige could mix up some wrestling into this, but when I think of the wrestling, I think of how good the Zombie's jiu-jitsu is. The Zombie has been dishing out knockouts forever. This is what he does. Damn. This is tough. And again, look, just don't bet. It's not really a fight to bet. And there's a reason why these odds are sat at -110 at most books either side. The book is going to take their money. They've got the house edge there. They're going to take their money. They don't care who wins this fight, because for as many people as bet on this, that they're winning either way. And like I say, I think Ige would be more comfortable wrestling his way to victory, but he's also just putting himself at risk of getting tapped out. And this is real tough. I think it's going to end inside the distance. I've got a funny feeling it's going to end inside the distance. And if I'm saying that, I think it's the Zombie that's going to get that job done. But you can also get the unders on this fight at plus money. So Unders across the board at plus money. I'm not sure what the under 1.5 is, but last time I checked, I'm pretty sure the under 2.5 was at plus money. I like that look. Under 3.5, I like that look. In terms of betting aside, you've just listened to this breakdown. It's really tough. I love both fighters. I think they're great. Zombie is obviously the fan favorite here. The fan in me is probably helping me lean, and then Matt's breakdown is probably helping me lean that way. But when I watch Ige, he is so fast, and he's such a smart fighter that I think he could take this into deep waters if he wanted to, especially if he mixes up the wrestling, tires out Jung. But yeah, I don't know. Just do whatever. That's my pick for this one. Just do whatever. Because this is extremely difficult.
Don't bet it. Don't bet it.
Yeah. There's other fights. Yeah, there's other fights you can lean on. You don't have to be forcing yourself into this main event, but it probably is going to claim fight of the night. Yeah. And if someone gets a finish, they'll probably take performance of the night too, and all of the night rewards, as you know, the Korean Zombie has done for a long time. I think he's got the most fight night bonuses in the featherweight division. And he's had performance of the night bonuses multiple times, fight of the night bonuses multiple times. I know he's had submission of the night bonuses and knockout of the night bonuses. So maybe his lack of activity is because he's won so much money in bonuses. I don't know, but yeah, it's a tough fight. This is one for the fans. It's not one to bet, and that's my breakdown.
All right. Well, I'm still gonna back Dan Ige just because. Read my breakdowns and then you guys will understand why. So just go to svrpicks.com/UFC and my breakdowns will be there for you guys. But that's our main card. That's our main card breakdown. Now it's time to jump into the prelims. Matt, I will begin with you for what is your top I can never say the full preliminary card pick. There you go.
You've got some great fights on this one. Verna John DeRoba, I saw somebody in the chat talking about that fight. It's going to be interesting to see how she does against Murata. But I have to pick this fight for two reasons. First of all, this person shares a name with me. Second of all, their mullet it's a work of art. Like, you got to hang it in a museum. Like, I'm going to call various museums in the Kentuckiana area and see if we can get this mounted somewhere. But Matthew Semmelsberger, that and Kalen Williams, you've got, and their records match up too. Like, there's some great records here in the upper echelon of this undercard. Kalen Williams walking in 11-2, Matthew Semmelsberger walking in 8-2. I'm gonna hedge my bets on the guy with the mullet, just because if you fight a guy with a mullet, you're crazy. If you think you can beat a guy with a mullet, you're even crazier. Learn that one the hard way, traveling down to San Diego one time. Less said about that, the better, per various legal picadillos. There we go. That's the word. But I'm looking at that one as my prelim to watch, just because anytime the mullet is back in the UFC where it belongs. The mullets belong in country music, hockey, and MMA, because those typify the target audience, Canadians and weirdos. So I'm going with that one as my prelim to watch for Saturday night.
All right, beautiful. Well, how about you, Dave? What's your top prelim pick?
I'm glad Matt said he's going with that fight as his prelim to watch, because I actually like Williams to get the job done. I really do think he's going to knock out Semmelsberger here. He's already been dishing out beatings to guys that we didn't expect him to. Abdulrazak Al Hassan and Alex Morono. That's two incredible wins to start your UFC career off, in my opinion. The Michelle Pereira fight, that was just a complete annoyance. I'm not even going to take that into account. But Matt Semmelsberger, he hasn't done much. He hasn't really fought anyone. You know, Jason Witt, Colin Minus. It's not the best look. I know it was a beautiful finish in that Witt fight, and he got that done quick. I actually remember picking Witt too. So going against them again here, I mean, I could be playing with fire, but Williams, Kalen, Chaos, whatever you want to call him, he has got hands, and he is going to throw them hands. And I think, again, this is a fight where you don't even have to pick the side. It's an under. I see so many fights ending this week. I do not think we're going to see the judges' scorecards, especially as much as we saw last week. And Williams is my fighter to pick on the prelims.
Yeah, see, I love you guys because literally that was the fight that I was looking at too. Because I love Kalen Williams. I love him. He's so good. But so I don't really need to break down that one because you guys kind of handle that for me. But let's move on to our lock on the card segment just because we are running out of time. And honestly, for this week, I personally do not have a lock on this card because this is such a weird card for me. Again, like I'm looking in, if I'm betting something, I'm probably going to bet 2 fights in this card. So I don't have a lock on the card as of right now, but I want to hear your potential lock on the card because I know you guys you probably won't have a lock on this card. But Dave, I'll begin with you.
Yeah, I think the lock, I'm not going to go with a side. I'm going to give the Spivak and Oleinik fight not to start round 3 at -110. And I don't even mind paying up 2 units for that because I really don't see it lasting 10 minutes. I really don't. I think either guy is going to get that done. More Spivak, piece up Oleinik, put him out of his misery in his old age. So, yeah, that's it.
Serious question. Do you see Oleinik winning that fight at all?
Yeah, I do, of course. I will never count out that guy. His arms, what's his nickname? The boa constrictor. He's called the boa constrictor for a reason. And, Maurice Green was a young, strapping heavyweight, the way I'm talking about Sergey Spivak, but he wrapped his arm up and he was tapping. How many people do you see rear naked choke Mark Hunt? It doesn't happen often. And prior to that losing streak that Oleinik was on with Overeem, Harris, back 2018, prior to that, this guy was a monster. He was going through all types of fighters, putting out Mr. Rousey with a neck crank, and then the Ezekiel choke over Junior Albini, and then rear naked choke Matt Hunt. He wasn't fat. If he would have beat Overeem in that fight, we would have been looking at a title contender in Oleinik. So it's easy for me to sit here and totally discredit him, but that's just not the case. I just feel like the Daukaus fight and his age, I feel like it's catching up with him. And I just wouldn't want to invest too much into an Asian fighter. But with that said, half a unit fire, especially at these odds, I'm not going to talk anybody off it. I'm not going to say that is a stupid bet because it's not. Because if it does hit the ground, if Spivak for some reason grapples or clinches, he might feel confident, although he shouldn't. He might feel confident that he can do something in this position, and maybe he can. This is MMA. Spivak is pretty slick on the ground too. But if Spivak gets on the floor and is off his back, it could be a rough night for him, and that's why I just like that bet in this fight not to start round 3. I'll pay up the juice for it strictly because I just think one of these men is gonna get the job done within 10 minutes.
I don't know. I just have a feeling that Spivak is going to try to bring it on the ground because he is strong on the ground. But if he was smart, he should keep it on the feet. But
yeah, pop the jab, and then wait for a combination to come and just piece up Oleinik. Exactly. All he has to do is watch the Daukaus fight, and that's how he needs to fight.
Exactly. But I think I'm going to put like a little bit on Oleinik just because I do love him, and I do love. I
don't blame you. So if you put, I think if you put money on every single underdog on this card this weekend, there's a good chance that you can come out profiting.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. But how about you, Matt? What is your potential lock on the card?
Oh, it's the same thing. It's that under for the Spivak Oleinik fight. Both of these guys are. I think Oleinik's gonna try to start keeping distance and try to work to a decision and try to just outmuscle him. I said that before my breakdown. But the more you think about it and the more you see how these guys go at it and how the last 2 fights went for Oleinik, he goes out on his shield. I don't think he's a guy who likes to win on the scorecards despite his record having a decent amount of decisions on it. I'm going to go with the under on that as my lock of the week. And also, this card I'm going to put a lock. This card's going to surprise some people because there are some great fights on here. There's a lot of stay-away fights for people like us who look at these fights very closely and very pragmatically. But I think we're going to be surprised by the quality of some of these fights, especially the undercard. We're going to have a good time. That's my lock of the week.
Beautiful. Yeah. It's going to be a great fight weekend, honestly. Yeah, it's not the most exciting card, but it's still going to be a great event. We're going to have fun either way. But that's all that we have for our entire main card breakdown. We dabbled into the prelims a little bit. Now, if you guys want to check out the rest of our UFC content, just go to sbrpicks.com/UFC. If you're not following the guys on Twitter, definitely give them a follow. You can follow Matt at MRyan Consulting and Dave at _. Then while you're at it, just give SBR a follow at SBR Sports Picks. And if for any reason there are last-minute changes to the card, again, follow us on Twitter. Check out our contents page at sbrpicks.com/UFC. We always have updates there. Now, I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next week.
Oos.